Marcus Thompson adjusted his red tunic one final time before stepping off the military transport plane at Pope Army Airfield. The North Carolina heat hit him immediately, a stark contrast to the cool London morning he had left behind just 8 hours earlier. At 29 years old, Thompson carried himself with a distinctive bearing that marked him as one of Britain's elite Queen's Guard, shoulders back, chin up, every movement precise and deliberate. The International Military Exchange Program had seemed like a routine assignment when his commanding officer first mentioned it. 6 weeks training alongside American forces, sharing techniques, and building relationships between allied nations. Thompson had volunteered eagerly, curious about American military culture and confident in his own abilities. He had served with distinction for over a decade, protecting Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and the Tower of London. His service record was spotless, his dedication unquestionable. What Thompson didn't know was that his arrival had already sparked heated debates in the barracks of Fort Bragg. The American soldiers, particularly those in the 75th Ranger Regiment, had been talking about the visiting British Guard for weeks. Some viewed the exchange with curiosity and respect. Others saw it as an opportunity to prove something that had been simmering beneath the surface of military pride for years. Captain Jake Morrison of the 75th Rangers had been vocal about his skepticism from the beginning. A combat veteran with 3 tours in Afghanistan and 2 in Iraq, Morrison commanded the respect of his men through proven leadership under fire. He had earned his Ranger tab through some of the most grueling training the military had to offer, and he wore his achievements with quiet confidence. These ceremonial guards, Morrison had said to his squad leaders just days before Thompson's arrival, they look impressive standing outside palaces, but what happens when you put them in real military situations? When you strip away the fancy uniforms and test what's underneath. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Morrison's most trusted non-commissioned officer, had nodded in agreement. I've seen those videos of them standing perfectly still while tourists try to make them react. That takes discipline, sure, but discipline and combat readiness are 2 different things. The conversation had continued in the mess hall, the gymnasium, and during training exercises. Word spread quickly through the base that the visiting British Guard was being viewed less as a colleague and more as a test subject. The Rangers began discussing ways to measure the Guardsmen against their own standards, to see if the legendary British military tradition could hold up against American special operations training. Thompson remained unaware of these discussions as he was processed through the base and assigned his temporary quarters. His first official meeting was with Colonel Patricia Hayes, the base commander, who welcomed him warmly and outlined the general structure of the exchange program. The conversation was professional and encouraging, focusing on mutual learning and cooperation between allied forces. "We're honored to have you here, Staff Sergeant Thompson," Colonel Hayes had said, reviewing his service record with obvious approval. "Your experience with the Coldstream Guards brings a unique perspective that our soldiers can learn from. The discipline and precision required for ceremonial duties translates into valuable skills that our forces can benefit from understanding." Thompson had thanked the colonel and expressed his own eagerness to learn from American military techniques. He spoke about his interest in seeing how different training methods produced excellent soldiers, and his hope that the exchange would strengthen the bond between British and American forces. The meeting ended on a positive note, with arrangements made for Thompson to begin integrated training the following Monday. But that weekend, as Thompson explored the base and attempted to familiarize himself with American military culture, the Rangers were finalizing their plans. What had started as casual conversation about testing the British Guard had evolved into something more concrete. Morrison and his team had developed what they called the Challenge, a comprehensive test that would push Thompson through increasingly difficult scenarios designed to expose any weaknesses in his training or resolve. The plan was sophisticated and multi-layered. It would begin with standard physical fitness tests that seemed routine, but were designed to be extremely demanding. From there, the challenges would escalate to include tactical scenarios, weapons proficiency tests, and psychological pressure situations that would test not just Thompson's military skills, but his mental fortitude under extreme stress. Morrison justified the plan to himself and his men as a legitimate training exercise. "We're not trying to humiliate anyone," he explained during a private meeting with his senior staff. "We're trying to understand what different military traditions actually produce. If this guard is as good as the British claim their ceremonial units are, then he'll prove it. If not, then we'll know the truth about the difference between ceremony and combat readiness." The other Rangers nodded their agreement, caught up in the competitive spirit, and genuinely curious about how their skills would compare. They had respect for British military history and tradition, but they also had confidence in their own abilities that bordered on certainty. They had been tested in real combat situations, had proven themselves under fire, and had earned their reputation through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. Sunday evening, as Thompson prepared for his first week of integrated training, he received a message to report to the Ranger Training Facility early Monday morning for what was described as initial assessment and orientation activities. The message seemed routine, part of the normal process of integrating a foreign soldier into American training protocols. Thompson spent that evening reviewing his own training experiences and reflecting on what he hoped to accomplish during his time at Fort Bragg. He thought about the ceremonies he had participated in, the long hours of standing guard, the precision required for every movement and gesture. He also thought about the combat training that was part of every guardsman's preparation, the weapons proficiency requirements, and the physical fitness standards that were every bit as demanding as those of any military unit. The Coldstream Guards might be known primarily for their ceremonial role, but Thompson knew the reality was far more complex. Every guard was a fully trained infantry soldier, capable of transitioning from ceremonial duties to combat operations when required. The training was comprehensive and demanding, combining the discipline required for state occasions with the skills needed for military action. As Monday morning approached, Thompson felt confident and eager to begin. He had no way of knowing that across the base, Morrison and his Rangers were making final preparations for challenges that would test him far beyond anything he had experienced in his military career. The stage was set for a confrontation that neither side fully understood, between traditions and philosophies that had developed along parallel but separate paths. The morning sun rose over Fort Bragg with the promise of revelation, though no one could predict exactly what truths would be uncovered in the days ahead. Thompson checked his gear one final time, ensuring everything met his exacting standards, unaware that his every move would soon be scrutinized by men who had already decided what they expected to find. The clash between ceremonial tradition and combat-tested pragmatism was about to begin, and neither the British Guardsmen nor the American Rangers were fully prepared for what they would discover about themselves, their training, and the true meaning of military excellence. The challenge that lay ahead would force both sides to confront assumptions they had never questioned and abilities they had never truly tested. Monday morning was coming, and with it, the beginning of an extraordinary test that would change everyone involved. Monday morning arrived with the humidity already building as Thompson made his way to the Ranger Training Facility. He had dressed in standard military fatigues, his boots polished to the mirror finish that was second nature to any member of the Queen's Guard. The facility itself was impressive, a sprawling complex of training areas, obstacle courses, and specialized equipment that spoke to the serious nature of Ranger preparation. Morrison was waiting with 6 of his senior Rangers when Thompson arrived precisely on time. The American captain's greeting was professional, but carried an undercurrent of evaluation that Thompson immediately recognized. He had seen that look before, the expression of soldiers measuring a potential ally or competitor. "Staff Sergeant Thompson," Morrison said, extending his hand. "Welcome to Ranger Training. We've prepared some assessment exercises to help us understand your capabilities and determine how best to integrate you into our training schedule." Thompson shook the offered hand firmly and nodded his acknowledgement. "I appreciate the opportunity, Captain Morrison. I'm eager to learn from your methods and share anything from my own experience that might be useful." The first test seemed straightforward enough, a physical fitness assessment that Morrison described as standard procedure for any soldier entering Ranger training programs. Thompson had expected this and felt confident in his abilities. The Queen's Guard maintained fitness standards that were every bit as demanding as any military unit, and Thompson had always exceeded those requirements. The assessment began with basic exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups performed to specific standards and time limits. Thompson completed each test easily, his movements controlled and efficient. The watching Rangers nodded their approval, but showed no surprise. These were basic requirements that any professional soldier should be able to meet. Then came the running test, and Thompson began to understand that this was more than routine assessment. The course laid out before him was not the standard 2-mile run he had expected, but a grueling 5-mile circuit that included varied terrain, obstacles, and elevation changes designed to push endurance to its limits. This gives us a better picture of overall conditioning, Morrison explained as they stood at the starting line. Rangers need to be prepared for extended operations in challenging environments. Thompson studied the course, noting the steep hills, the water obstacles, and the rope climbs integrated throughout the route. This was clearly designed to be as difficult as possible, but he felt no intimidation. His training had included similar challenges, and he understood that this was as much about mental toughness as physical capability. The run began at a pace that immediately separated serious athletes from casual fitness enthusiasts. Thompson settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable while keeping pace with Rodriguez, who had been assigned to run alongside him. The sergeant was clearly an exceptional athlete, and Thompson could see that maintaining this pace for 5 miles would require everything he had. As they progressed through the course, Thompson began to appreciate the sophisticated design of the challenges. Each obstacle appeared at a point where fatigue would make it maximally difficult. The rope climbs came just after steep uphill sections when his arms were already strained. Water obstacles appeared when his breathing was labored and coordination was most challenged. But something unexpected began to happen as the run continued. Instead of showing signs of struggle, Thompson seemed to find another gear. His breathing remained controlled, his pace steady, and his form unchanged despite the accumulating fatigue. Rodriguez, who had expected to push the visiting guardsman to his limits, found himself working harder than anticipated to maintain the pace. By mile 3, other Rangers who had positioned themselves around the course to observe were beginning to take notice. Thompson was not just keeping up with their assessment, he was excelling at it. His military bearing never wavered, and he attacked each obstacle with precision and confidence that spoke to extensive training and experience. The water obstacles revealed another dimension of Thompson's capabilities. While Rodriguez powered through with brute force, Thompson moved with efficiency and technique that minimized energy expenditure while maintaining speed. His approach to each challenge showed tactical thinking that impressed the observing Rangers despite their preconceptions. Mile 4 brought the steepest terrain and the most demanding rope work. This was where Morrison had expected to see the ceremonial soldier finally break down, where the difference between parade ground preparation and combat training would become obvious. Instead, Thompson attacked the hills with steady determination and completed the rope climbs with textbook form that would have earned praise in any military training program. Rodriguez was now breathing hard and showing clear signs of fatigue, while Thompson maintained the same controlled efficiency he had displayed from the beginning. The watching Rangers exchanged glances that spoke to growing surprise and respect. Whatever they had expected from the British Guard, this level of performance had not been part of their calculations. The final mile included the most complex obstacles, a series of wall climbs, crawling sections, and precision jumps that required full-body coordination while exhausted. Thompson navigated these challenges with the same steady competence he had shown throughout, finishing the course with a time that would have been respectable for any Ranger candidate. Morrison checked his stopwatch twice before announcing the time, clearly surprised by the result. Thompson had not only completed one of their most demanding fitness assessments, he had done so with a performance that ranked in the top 10% of all soldiers who had attempted it. "Outstanding work, Staff Sergeant," Morrison said, his tone carrying newfound respect. "That's an impressive display of conditioning and mental toughness." Thompson accepted the praise with characteristic British understatement. "Thank you, Captain. It was a well-designed test. Your training standards are clearly very demanding. But even as Morrison acknowledged Thompson's performance, he was already planning the next phase of assessment. The physical fitness test had been designed to establish baseline capabilities, and Thompson had exceeded expectations. Now it was time to move into areas where Morrison felt more confident about Ranger superiority, tactical skills, weapons proficiency, and combat decision-making under pressure. The afternoon brought weapons assessment, beginning with standard marksmanship tests using American weapons systems that Thompson had limited experience with. Morrison introduced him to the M4 carbine and the M249 squad automatic weapon, explaining the basics of operation and safety procedures. Thompson listened carefully to the instruction, asked thoughtful questions about the differences between these weapons and the British systems he was familiar with, and demonstrated the kind of adaptability that marked professional soldiers. When they moved to the firing range, Morrison expected to see some struggles as Thompson adapted to unfamiliar equipment. Instead, Thompson's first groups with the M4 were tight and centered, showing natural shooting ability that translated across weapon systems. His handling of the rifle was confident and safe, and his shot placement consistently met or exceeded the standards Morrison had set for the assessment. "You've clearly had excellent marksmanship training," Morrison observed as they examined Thompson's targets. "British small arms instruction must be very thorough." "We spend considerable time on weapons proficiency," Thompson replied. "Accuracy and safety are emphasized from the beginning of training and reinforced throughout our careers." The squad automatic weapon test proved even more impressive. Despite the weapon's greater complexity and different handling characteristics, Thompson quickly mastered the basics and demonstrated shooting skills that would have been creditable in any military unit. His ability to maintain accuracy while managing the weapon's recoil and rate of fire showed experience and training that went far beyond ceremonial requirements. As the day progressed, Morrison found his assumptions being challenged at every turn. The British Guardsman was proving to be not just competent, but genuinely skilled in areas that the Rangers considered their specialties. The gap between ceremonial duty and combat readiness that Morrison had expected to find was simply not there. The final exercise of the day was a tactical movement drill designed to test decision-making under pressure. Thompson was given a scenario involving moving through hostile territory to reach a specified objective, with Rangers playing the role of enemy forces attempting to detect and engage him. Morrison had designed this exercise to expose weaknesses in tactical thinking and fieldcraft. Ceremonial soldiers, he reasoned, would lack the practical experience needed to move effectively in realistic combat situations. This would be where the difference between tradition and practical training would finally become obvious. Thompson studied the terrain carefully, asked pertinent questions about the rules of engagement and victory conditions, and then moved out with confidence that surprised his observers. His route selection showed tactical awareness, his movement technique demonstrated proper training, and his decision-making under pressure revealed experience that Morrison was beginning to realize he had underestimated. As evening approached, and the day's assessments concluded, Morrison found himself in an uncomfortable position. Every test had been designed to reveal the limitations of ceremonial military training, and every test had instead demonstrated capabilities that matched or exceeded Ranger standards. The British Guardsman had not just met the challenges, he had excelled at them. The Rangers gathered in their barracks that evening to discuss the day's results, and the conversation was notably different from their earlier confidence. Thompson had earned their respect through performance that could not be dismissed or explained away. The assumption that ceremonial duties produced inferior soldiers had been directly challenged by evidence they could not ignore. Morrison realized that his original plan needed significant revision. The challenges he had prepared for the following days would need to be more sophisticated and demanding than anything he had originally conceived. If Thompson was going to be tested to his limits, it would require everything the Rangers had to offer. Tuesday morning brought a different atmosphere to the training facility. Word of Thompson's impressive performance had spread throughout the Ranger community, and what had begun as casual interest in testing a ceremonial soldier had evolved into something approaching genuine competition. Morrison arrived early to finalize preparation for challenges that would push both Thompson and his own men to their absolute limits. The day's first exercise was urban combat simulation, using the base's elaborate military operations in urban terrain facility. This complex reproduced the challenges of fighting in cities, with multi-story buildings, narrow alleys, and civilian obstacles that created the kind of three-dimensional battlefield that had defined modern warfare. Morrison had selected his most experienced rangers for this exercise, veterans who had learned urban combat techniques in the streets of Fallujah and Kandahar. The scenario involved clearing a series of buildings suspected of housing enemy combatants, with Thompson working alongside a four-man ranger team to accomplish the mission. Staff Sergeant Williams, the team leader, briefed Thompson on American urban combat doctrine, explaining the techniques for room clearing, corridor movement, and vertical assault that formed the foundation of Ranger urban operations. Thompson listened intently, asking questions that revealed his understanding of the tactical complexities involved. The key to urban combat, Williams explained as they prepared their equipment, is coordination and communication. Every movement has to be precisely timed, and everyone has to know exactly what their teammates are doing at all times. Thompson nodded his understanding and checked his gear with the same methodical precision he brought to all military activities. He had been assigned an M4 carbine and standard Ranger tactical equipment, and he familiarized himself with each item while mentally preparing for the exercise ahead. The first building presented a straightforward challenge, a two-story structure with multiple rooms that needed to be cleared systematically. Williams positioned Thompson as the number 2 man in the entry team, a role that required split-second decision-making and absolute trust between partners. As they approached the first doorway, Thompson demonstrated movement techniques that impressed his teammates with their precision and efficiency. His understanding of angles and positioning showed training that went far beyond basic infantry skills, and his ability to coordinate his movements with the team suggested extensive experience in small unit tactics. The entry itself revealed another dimension of Thompson's capabilities. As Williams breached the door and moved into the room, Thompson followed with textbook form, covering his assigned sector while maintaining awareness of his teammates' positions. His weapon handling was flawless, his movement controlled and purposeful. But it was Thompson's decision-making under pressure that truly caught the attention of the observing Rangers. When the team encountered a complex room with multiple potential threats and civilian obstacles, Thompson's assessment of priorities and selection of targets demonstrated tactical thinking that matched the best of Ranger training. Threat right, civilian left, Thompson called out clearly as he acquired his target, his voice calm and controlled despite the intensity of the simulation. His shot placement was precise, and his immediate transition to covering the next potential danger zone showed combat reflexes that had clearly been developed through extensive training. Room after room, Thompson continued to perform at a level that impressed his teammates and surprised the observing Rangers. His understanding of urban combat principles was thorough, his execution was precise, and his ability to adapt to changing situations showed flexibility that marked truly professional soldiers. The second building presented more complex challenges, including vertical movement and multi-level coordination that tested the team's ability to maintain communication and timing while operating on different floors simultaneously. Thompson was assigned to lead one element of the assault, a responsibility that required him to make independent tactical decisions while coordinating with the overall mission. His leadership during this phase revealed yet another aspect of his military training. Thompson's orders were clear and concise, his tactical decisions sound, and his ability to maintain control of his element while adapting to changing circumstances demonstrated command experience that went far beyond what the Rangers had expected from a ceremonial guardsman. When unexpected complications arose, simulated civilian hostages, equipment failures, and time pressure that tested everyone's ability to maintain performance under stress, Thompson responded with composure and competence that earned nods of approval from even the most skeptical observers. The final building in the complex presented the most demanding scenario yet, involving a hostage rescue situation that required precision, timing, and split-second decision-making that could mean the difference between success and catastrophic failure. Thompson was assigned the most critical role in the assault, responsible for neutralizing the primary threat while ensuring the safety of the simulated hostages. As the team prepared for the final assault, Williams found himself relying on Thompson's judgment in ways he had not anticipated. The British Guardsman's tactical suggestions were sound, his understanding of the risks involved was comprehensive, and his confidence under pressure provided stability that strengthened the entire team. The assault itself unfolded with precision that would have been creditable in any military operation. Thompson's performance during the critical moments was flawless. His target identification was instantaneous, his shot placement was perfect, and his immediate assessment of the situation after the engagement showed tactical awareness that impressed everyone involved. Morrison, who had been observing the exercise from the control room, found himself reassessing not just Thompson's capabilities but his own assumptions about the relationship between ceremonial duty and combat readiness. The British Guardsman was demonstrating skills and knowledge that clearly came from comprehensive military training that went far beyond what most people understood about the Queen's Guard. The afternoon brought even more challenging exercises, including advanced marksmanship tests that pushed accuracy and speed to their limits. Thompson was introduced to precision rifle systems and challenged to engage targets at ranges that tested both his shooting skills and his understanding of ballistics and environmental factors. Working with the Rangers' designated marksman rifle, Thompson quickly adapted to the weapon's characteristics and demonstrated shooting ability that ranked among the best the Rangers had seen. His understanding of wind compensation, range estimation, and target priority showed training in precision shooting that had clearly been developed over years of practice. "Where did you learn to shoot like this?" Rodriguez asked as they examined Thompson's targets, which showed group sizes that would have been respectable for any sniper-qualified soldier. Thompson's answer revealed the depth of training that the Rangers were beginning to understand was standard for the Queen's Guard. "We have comprehensive marksmanship programs that include precision shooting, combat marksmanship, and competitive shooting sports. Every guardsman is expected to maintain proficiency across all these areas." The final exercise of the day was night operations, using advanced night vision equipment and tactical scenarios that tested the team's ability to operate effectively in complete darkness. Thompson had limited experience with American night vision systems, but he adapted quickly and demonstrated understanding of night fighting techniques that showed thorough preparation for combat operations. Moving through the darkened training area, Thompson's performance continued to impress his teammates. His movement was controlled and nearly silent, his navigation was precise, and his ability to coordinate with the team using night vision equipment showed adaptability that marked truly professional soldiers. As Wednesday morning approached, Morrison realized that his original challenge had evolved into something far more complex than he had anticipated. Thompson was not just meeting Ranger standards, he was exceeding them in many areas. The British Guardsman's performance was forcing the Rangers to confront the possibility that their assumptions about ceremonial soldiers had been fundamentally wrong. But Morrison was not ready to concede defeat. He had one final set of challenges prepared, exercises that would test not just Thompson's military skills, but his mental toughness and psychological resilience under the kind of extreme pressure that separated true warriors from merely competent soldiers. The next phase would involve survival training, psychological pressure tests, and leadership challenges under conditions designed to break down even the most prepared individuals. Morrison had confidence that these final tests would reveal the limitations that he was certain had to exist somewhere in Thompson's preparation. Wednesday would bring the ultimate test, and Morrison was determined to discover once and for all whether the British tradition of ceremonial duty could truly produce soldiers capable of meeting every challenge that modern warfare could present. The stakes had grown beyond simple military assessment. This had become a test of philosophies, traditions, and the fundamental question of what made a truly superior soldier. As Thompson prepared for what he sensed would be the most demanding challenges yet, he reflected on the training that had brought him to this point. The Queen's Guard demanded excellence in every aspect of military performance, from ceremonial precision to combat readiness. He had always understood that these requirements were not separate, but interconnected. each reinforcing the others in ways that produced soldiers capable of excelling in any situation. Tomorrow would test that understanding to its limits, and Thompson was ready to prove that tradition and innovation, ceremony and combat effectiveness were not opposing forces but complementary aspects of true military excellence. Wednesday arrived with an electric tension that everyone on the base could feel. Morrison had spent the night designing what he considered the ultimate test, a comprehensive challenge that would push Thompson beyond anything either of them had experienced before. This would not be a simple assessment, but a grueling ordeal that would test every aspect of military capability, mental toughness, and leadership under the most extreme circumstances possible. The day began before dawn with what Morrison described as advanced survival training, but Thompson quickly realized this was something far more demanding than standard military survival exercises. He was dropped alone in a remote section of the base's training area with minimal equipment and given 48 hours to complete a series of objectives while evading pursuit by teams of rangers who knew the terrain intimately. The challenge was designed to test not just survival skills, but decision-making under extreme stress, adaptability in changing circumstances, and the kind of mental fortitude that separated exceptional soldiers from merely competent ones. Thompson would have to navigate difficult terrain, locate specific objectives, avoid detection by experienced hunters, and maintain peak performance while dealing with hunger, exhaustion, and constant psychological pressure. Morrison had positioned his best rangers throughout the area with orders to make Thompson's mission as difficult as possible without causing actual harm. They would use every technique in their considerable arsenal to track, harass, and pressure the British guardsman until he either completed his objectives or broke under the strain. Thompson studied his map and equipment carefully before setting out. He had been given basic survival gear, a compass, and coordinates for 3 objectives he needed to reach within a time limit. The terrain was challenging, dense forest broken by steep ravines and rocky outcroppings that would test his navigation skills and physical endurance. What Thompson didn't know was that Morrison had position motion sensors, trail cameras, and observation posts throughout the area. Every move would be monitored, every decision analyzed, and every sign of weakness exploited by rangers who had been specifically instructed to push the visiting guardsman beyond his breaking point. The first 12 hours revealed capabilities that surprised even Morrison, who had begun to respect Thompson's skills, but still believed the sustained pressure of true survival conditions would expose limitations that had not appeared in earlier tests. Thompson moved through the forest with efficiency and stealth that spoke to extensive training in field craft and woodland operations. His route selection showed tactical thinking that minimized exposure while maintaining progress toward his objectives. His movement techniques were textbook perfect, and his ability to remain undetected while covering difficult ground demonstrated skills that Morrison had to acknowledge were superior to those of many rangers. But the real test came when the first pursuit team made contact. Thompson had been moving toward his first objective when rangers using advanced tracking equipment picked up his trail and began actively hunting him. This was where Morrison expected to see the difference between training exercises and real pressure, when being hunted by experts would force mistakes that would reveal the limitations of ceremonial military preparation. Instead, Thompson's response to being pursued showed tactical awareness and fieldcraft that impressed even his hunters. He used terrain effectively to break contact, employed deception techniques to confuse his trail, and demonstrated understanding of pursuit tactics that suggested extensive training in escape and evasion procedures. Staff Sergeant Martinez, leading the first pursuit team, found himself genuinely challenged in ways he had not expected. "This guy knows what he's doing," Martinez reported to Morrison over radio. "He's not just running. He's thinking tactically and using techniques that are making him very difficult to track." As the hours progressed, Thompson continued to outmaneuver pursuit teams while making steady progress toward his objectives. His navigation remained precise despite fatigue and stress, and his decision-making showed no signs of deterioration even as the pressure intensified. The first objective required Thompson to locate and photograph a specific landmark while avoiding detection by rangers who had set up observation posts in the area. Thompson's approach to this challenge revealed another dimension of his training: reconnaissance skills that allowed him to identify and assess the positions of his opponents before planning his approach. Using natural cover and patient observation, Thompson identified 3 separate ranger positions and plotted a route that would allow him to reach his objective without exposure. His movement during the actual approach was nearly perfect, and he completed the task without being detected by observers who had been specifically positioned to prevent exactly what he accomplished. Morrison, monitoring the exercise from his command post, found his confidence in the inevitable outcome beginning to waver. Thompson was not just surviving the challenges. He was excelling at them in ways that suggested preparation far beyond what Morrison had thought possible for a ceremonial soldier. The second day brought escalating pressure as Morrison deployed additional pursuit teams and introduced psychological stressors designed to break down Thompson's mental resilience. Sleep deprivation, hunger, and constant threat of detection were supplemented by deliberate attempts to frustrate and demoralize the British Guardsmen. False trails were laid to waste his time and energy. Equipment was sabotaged to create additional challenges. Radio transmissions were broadcast to suggest that his mission parameters had changed or that he was failing to meet expectations. Every technique in the psychological warfare playbook was employed to create stress that would force Thompson to make the mistakes that Morrison was certain had to be coming. But Thompson's response to these pressures revealed mental toughness that matched his tactical skills. He recognized the psychological warfare for what it was and maintained focus on his objectives while adapting to each new challenge with composure that frustrated his tormentors. When he discovered that his equipment had been tampered with, Thompson improvised solutions that demonstrated resourcefulness and practical knowledge. When false information was broadcast to confuse him, he relied on his own navigation and judgment rather than being misled by deception. When pursuit teams intensified their efforts to corner him, he responded with tactical innovations that kept him one step ahead of increasingly desperate hunters. The second objective required Thompson to conduct a detailed reconnaissance of a mock enemy installation while avoiding patrols that had been specifically instructed to capture him. This challenge combined all the skills that had been tested individually: stealth, observation, tactical thinking, and decision-making under pressure. Thompson's approach to this objective was masterful. He spent hours observing the installation from multiple positions, identifying patrol patterns and security weaknesses with patience and professionalism that would have earned praise in any reconnaissance unit. His final approach was executed with precision that allowed him to gather all required intelligence while remaining completely undetected. Rodriguez, who had been tasked with commanding the security force for this objective, found himself outmaneuvered by tactical thinking he had not anticipated. "He's better at this than most of our own reconnaissance specialists," Rodriguez reported to Morrison with obvious respect and growing amazement. As the final phase of the survival exercise began, Morrison realized that his ultimate challenge was in danger of becoming Thompson's ultimate vindication. Every aspect of the test had been designed to expose weaknesses, and every aspect had instead demonstrated strengths that matched or exceeded Ranger capabilities. The third and final objective was the most demanding yet. Thompson had to penetrate a heavily defended area, retrieve specific intelligence, and extract without being caught by a force that included the best trackers and hunters the Rangers could deploy. This was designed to be impossible, a challenge that would force Thompson to acknowledge defeat and accept that some missions were beyond the capabilities of any individual soldier. But Thompson's final approach showed tactical brilliance that left his opponents scrambling to respond. He used weather conditions, terrain features, and timing with sophistication that demonstrated understanding of special operations principles at the highest level. His penetration of the defended area was a clinic in stealth and tactical thinking that would have earned admiration from any special operations unit. The intelligence gathering itself required Thompson to get close enough to document specific details while remaining undetected by guards who had been alerted to his presence. His patience and professionalism during this phase showed nerve and skill that Morrison had to acknowledge was exceptional by any standard. But it was Thompson's extraction that truly stunned his opponents. Instead of attempting to escape through the routes that had been anticipated and prepared for, he used innovative tactics that completely surprised the Rangers and allowed him to leave the area before they could organize an effective response. As the 48-hour exercise concluded with Thompson having successfully completed all three objectives while evading capture by some of America's most skilled soldiers, Morrison found himself facing a reality he had never anticipated. The British Guardsman had not just passed the ultimate test, he had excelled at it in ways that forced a complete reevaluation of everything Morrison thought he knew about military training and capability. That evening, as the Rangers gathered to debrief the exercise, the conversation was markedly different from the confident discussions that had preceded Thompson's arrival. Respect had replaced skepticism, and admiration had supplanted the assumption of superiority that had motivated the original challenge. Staff Sergeant Williams spoke for many of his colleagues when he said, "I've never seen anything like what we witnessed these past few days. This man has skills and knowledge that match the best of anything we can produce, and he's maintained performance under pressure that would break most soldiers." Morrison realized that his challenge had backfired in the most complete way possible. Instead of exposing weaknesses in British military tradition, the exercises had revealed strengths that forced American soldiers to question their own assumptions about excellence and effectiveness. But there was one final test that Morrison felt compelled to conduct, a challenge that would determine not just Thompson's individual capabilities, but his ability to lead and inspire others under the most demanding circumstances possible. Tomorrow would bring a test of leadership that would push both Thompson and a team of Rangers in a territory that none of them had ever explored before. Thursday morning brought the final and most ambitious challenge that Morrison could devise. Having seen Thompson excel at every individual test, Morrison designed a complex leadership exercise that would require the British Guardsmen to command a team of Rangers through a mission so demanding that success would require not just technical competence, but inspirational leadership under impossible circumstances. The scenario was elaborate and realistic, a simulated hostage rescue mission in a multi-building complex defended by experienced opposing forces. Thompson would lead a team of 6 Rangers, including some who had initially been most skeptical of his abilities, through an operation that required split-second coordination, innovative tactics, and the kind of leadership that could inspire men to risk everything for mission success. Morrison had deliberately selected Rangers who represented different personality types and experience levels, creating a team dynamic that would challenge any leader. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez brought years of combat experience and strong opinions about how operations should be conducted. Corporal Jackson was a young soldier with exceptional skills, but a tendency to question authority. Sergeant First Class Williams had leadership experience of his own and might resist taking orders from someone outside the Ranger community. The briefing revealed the full scope of the challenge. Intelligence indicated that 20 hostages were being held in a compound defended by numerically superior forces with intimate knowledge of the terrain. The mission required precise timing, multiple simultaneous actions, and contingency planning for scenarios that could change rapidly and unpredictably. Thompson studied the intelligence carefully, asking questions that revealed his understanding of the tactical complexities involved while demonstrating respect for the knowledge and experience of his team members. His approach to mission planning was collaborative, seeking input from each Ranger while maintaining clear command authority. "Gentlemen," Thompson began as he addressed his team, "this mission will require everything each of us can contribute. I want your honest assessments of the challenges we're facing and your recommendations for how we can accomplish our objectives while minimizing risk to our people and the hostages." The planning session that followed revealed Thompson's leadership style in ways that surprised even Morrison, who was monitoring from the command center. Instead of imposing preconceived solutions, Thompson facilitated a discussion that drew on the expertise of each team member while maintaining focus on mission requirements and tactical realities. Rodriguez, who had expected to resent taking orders from an outsider, found himself impressed by Thompson's willingness to listen and incorporate suggestions while maintaining clear decision-making authority. "He's not trying to prove he knows everything," Rodriguez observed to Williams during a break in planning. "He's trying to use what everyone knows to make the best plan possible." The tactical plan that emerged from the collaborative process was sophisticated and flexible, incorporating multiple approaches to each objective while maintaining contingencies for the unexpected complications that always arose during complex operations. Thompson's understanding of special operations principles was evident in every aspect of the planning, from timing and coordination to resource allocation and risk management. But planning was only the first test of leadership. The real challenge would come during execution, when the fog of war and unexpected complications would test Thompson's ability to make critical decisions under pressure while maintaining the confidence and cohesion of his team. The mission began with infiltration that required the team to move undetected through terrain that offered limited concealment while avoiding patrols that had been positioned to intercept any rescue attempt. Thompson's movement orders were clear and precise, and his navigation kept the team on course while avoiding contact with enemy forces. When the first complication arose, an unexpected patrol that threatened to compromise their approach, Thompson's response demonstrated tactical flexibility and calm decision-making that impressed his team. Instead of aborting the mission or taking unnecessary risks, he adapted the plan in real time while maintaining mission focus and team coordination. "New plan," Thompson whispered over the team radio, his voice calm and controlled despite the immediate danger. Rodriguez and Jackson establish overwatch on the North Ridge. Williams and Martinez swing wide through the creek bed. "We'll rendezvous at Objective Alpha in 15 minutes. The maneuver that followed was executed with precision that would have been creditable for any special operations unit. Each team member knew exactly what was expected and moved with confidence that came from clear leadership and thorough preparation. When they reassembled at the first objective, Thompson quickly assessed the new tactical situation and made adjustments that kept the mission on track. The compound assault itself required coordination and timing that tested every aspect of Thompson's leadership abilities. Multiple breaching points had to be attacked simultaneously, communications had to be maintained across separated elements, and split-second decisions had to be made that could mean the difference between success and catastrophe. Thompson positioned himself where he could maintain command and control while remaining close enough to the action to make immediate tactical adjustments as the situation developed. His orders during the assault were clear and concise, his tactical decisions sound, and his ability to maintain awareness of all elements while managing the overall battle demonstrated command skills that impressed everyone involved. When unexpected resistance was encountered at the primary breach point, Thompson immediately redirected forces to exploit a secondary approach while maintaining pressure that prevented the defenders from repositioning effectively. His ability to visualize the entire battle and coordinate multiple elements showed tactical thinking at the highest level. But it was during the most critical phase of the operation, the actual hostage rescue, that Thompson's leadership truly shone. Moving through the compound under fire, coordinating the systematic clearing of buildings while protecting civilians and maintaining mission momentum required leadership skills that went far beyond technical competence. Jackson, cover the stairs. Rodriguez, clear left. Williams, you're with me on the hostages, Thompson directed as they approached the final objective. His voice carried absolute confidence that inspired his team to perform beyond their own expectations. The final building contained the most complex tactical situation yet. Hostages scattered throughout multiple rooms, defenders using civilian shields, and time pressure that made every second critical. Thompson's decisions during these moments were instantaneous and correct, demonstrating judgment under pressure that marked truly exceptional military leaders. His assessment of threat priorities was perfect, his coordination of multiple simultaneous actions was flawless, and his ability to maintain control while adapting to rapidly changing circumstances showed command presence that would have been respected in any military unit in the world. When the simulation ended with all hostages rescued and all objectives accomplished, the silence in the command center was profound. Morrison and his observers had witnessed a demonstration of leadership and tactical competence that exceeded anything they had thought possible from someone outside the Ranger community. The debriefing that followed was unlike any Morrison had ever conducted. Instead of critiquing performance and identifying areas for improvement, the discussion focused on techniques and innovations that the Rangers wanted to understand and potentially incorporate into their own training. How did you know to redirect the assault when the primary breach failed? Williams asked, his tone carrying genuine curiosity and respect. Thompson's answer revealed the depth of his training and experience. The Queen's Guard receives comprehensive instruction in special operations principles, including hostage rescue and urban combat techniques. We train regularly with other British Special Forces units, and our preparation includes scenarios very similar to what we just completed. Rodriguez shook his head in amazement. I had no idea that ceremonial units received that level of tactical training. The coordination and decision-making we just witnessed was at the level of our most advanced special operations courses. Morrison realized that his understanding of British military structure had been fundamentally flawed. The Queen's Guard was not a ceremonial unit that happened to have some military training. It was an elite military unit that happened to have ceremonial responsibilities. The difference was profound and explained everything they had witnessed over the past week. As the formal assessment period concluded, Morrison found himself in the unprecedented position of having to acknowledge that his challenge had completely backfired. Instead of exposing weaknesses in British military tradition, the exercises had revealed capabilities that matched or exceeded American special operations standards. But the real surprise came during the final gathering, when Thompson addressed the assembled Rangers with characteristic British understatement. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for an extraordinary week of training. Your professionalism and expertise have challenged me in ways that will make me a better soldier, and I hope our exchange has been mutually beneficial. The response from the Rangers was immediate and unanimous, sustained applause that acknowledged not just Thompson's performance, but the complete reversal of their preconceptions about ceremonial military service. Morrison stepped forward to formally conclude the exercise, but his prepared remarks suddenly seemed inadequate. Staff Sergeant Thompson, he said, abandoning his notes, you have demonstrated capabilities that exceed anything we anticipated and have forced all of us to reconsider our assumptions about military excellence. It has been an honor to serve alongside you. The weeks that followed brought changes to both British and American military training programs, as leaders on both sides recognized the value of the techniques and approaches that had been demonstrated during Thompson's visit. The exchange program was expanded and formalized, with regular rotations designed to share the best practices that each tradition had developed. Thompson returned to London with commendations from American commanders and a deeper understanding of how different military cultures could learn from each other. His experience at Fort Bragg became a case study in military training programs, demonstrating that excellence could emerge from unexpected sources and that tradition and innovation were not opposing forces but complementary aspects of military effectiveness. Morrison's career was enhanced rather than damaged by his challenge to Thompson, as his willingness to test assumptions and learn from unexpected results was recognized as valuable leadership quality. He became an advocate for international military exchanges and played a key role in developing programs that brought together soldiers from different traditions to share knowledge and techniques. The story of the Crown Guard who tackled the U.S. Army challenge became legend in both military communities, not because of conflict between traditions, but because of the mutual respect and learning that emerged when professional soldiers recognized excellence regardless of its source. Thompson had proven that true military capability transcended cultural boundaries and that the pursuit of excellence was a universal value that united warriors across all traditions and nations. The outcome was indeed shocking, not because one tradition proved superior to another, but because the exercise revealed that military excellence was far more complex and multifaceted than anyone had realized, and that the best soldiers were those who remained open to learning from any source that could make them better at their profession.